Hello everyone and welcome to this live event which is going to take you through how to use Microsoft Teams. It's not just about how to use Microsoft Teams, we will be showcasing some of the other tools and telling you about lots of things that are going on in the cloud programme. Today your key presenters will be John Palmer and Sean Deegan, joined by myself, Evelyn Trearty. At the end we'll be taking Q&A, and at that point we'll be joined by Nicholas Smith and Ronnie Gibson. If you want to get involved in the Q&A, you'll see a panel over on the right-hand side of the live event. You'll be able to add your questions into that. We'll attempt to answer those as we go along, and we'll have the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So if you move on to the next slide for me, John, we have, we'll be recording the webinar as well, just to let you know. You can use the same link that you used in order to get into the webinar today. You'll be able to use that at a later stage to see a recording of it, and you can pass that on to others who you feel might be interested in finding out a bit more. Now today is going to be looking initially at basic Teams. So Sean and John will take you a run through on what Microsoft Teams is. They'll be looking at how you use it from a collaboration perspective. So the basic elements of it, the core functionality, they'll look at things like how you set up a team, how you set up channels, how you use it for things like meetings, for chat, using @mentions, and they'll also be looking at how you collaborate on files on the platform. But there's an awful lot more to that within Microsoft Teams. So it's not just about the basic tools. So we'll be taking a look at Microsoft Teams as a Power Platform as well. There's lots of different smaller apps that you can use within Teams. We'll be shortly releasing some of these, and I'll talk to you at the end about some of them. So things like Planner, To Do, and Forms will be available to you pretty soon. But it's not just about the Microsoft apps that you can use. You can also plug in third-party apps. So you'll soon find that Teams might end up being the place that you go to get used to things like maybe Zoom in there or Trello. And there'll be opportunities for you to feed into various different mechanisms with the cloud program where you can vote on the tools that you want activated. And it's not just about those types of tools. At the end, John will take a look at using the Microsoft Teams as in conjunction with some of the other Power tools. Microsoft talk about it as being no-code or low-code solutions. You don't have to be an IT technical person in order to use some of the tools within the Microsoft 365 platforms. So think about a scenario where you maybe have a form where you submit a request, and once you put in that form, it triggers then a whole pile of things in the background. So it might send an email message to somebody, it might pop an action into their planner list, a task for them to do, and it might as well populate something into a SharePoint list, and all of that just by simply pressing a button. And that's where the Power Apps are working in the background to look at various different workflows. And John will take you through some of that at the end of the demo on the basic Teams. Don't worry about the tools because we'll have lots of training and support available to you. We'll send you on the link after this session out to our Microsoft 365 training and support site. You'll also be able to give us feedback on this session, and you'll have the opportunity to sign up to find out more about what's going on in the cloud program. But that's enough from me for now. I'm going to hand you over to John, and John is going to take a look at Microsoft Teams for you.
Okay, thanks, Evelyn. Hello, everyone. So what is Microsoft Teams? Well, it's a hub for teamwork, a hub for communication and teamwork. It locks everything in what you used to call Office 365, but it's now correctly known as Microsoft 365 or even M365. And it locks all that together because it combines the features of Zoom, Microsoft 365, and a messaging system like WhatsApp or Facebook. At the top, you have Microsoft Teams. And below Teams, there's the whole suite of M365 implemented here at Strathclyde. Below that, there's a SharePoint Online site. And below that, there's a Microsoft for Business files and folders sitting there. Let's turn that around and do it from the bottom up. Teams acts as a hub because right at the bottom, there's a Microsoft OneDrive for Business with all your files and folders. Above that, there's a SharePoint site that you can use if you wish. Above that's the whole of M365, and at the top there is Teams, where you do your work and where you can collaborate with people in your team and beyond. Now, just to show you, on this screen here, there's a screenshot, and on the right, it says a team holds the people. Well, the team is this bit here, right? It says team, it's called PMO Online. You can be in many teams. Team holds the people. Some of the people will be owners, they can control the team, and other people will be members, which means that they just use the team, but they don't have control. Underneath that, you can see it says general, raw video footage, small apps. These are the names of channels. Now, channels, an analogy for channels is they're a little bit like folders, because channels hold the content. The teams hold the people, and the channels hold the content. Okay. Now, there's another way, a good way of communicating inside here, and that's through chat and conversations. If you look here up where my cursor is, you can see there's a chat symbol. Now, chat allows you to have conversations with people outside of the individual channels within a team. Okay, you can speak to individual people or groups of people, and you can speak to people who aren't in any of your teams. The conversations, you can see them listed here. And a good analogy for conversations is that they're like Facebook, posting on Facebook. You put one conversation up, people can reply to it. You put another conversation up, people can reply to it. With conversations, and particularly because everybody in the channel can see a conversation, I want to flag up to you that you can in fact delete a conversation if you put something up today and decide tomorrow it was a bad idea. Okay, so the key point is the team holds the people, the channels hold the content. Okay, I'm going to move on now, and I'm going to pass you over to Sean, who's going to take you through on the user interface. Sean.
Okay, thanks for that, John. So over to me, and I'll take you a whistle-stop tour the user interface of Teams. So we're going to start at the top right-hand side, and I'm going to click my profile icon. Now, when I click that, there's a few different options that you'll be able to see. You can do things up here like change your profile picture if you're so inclined, and you've got your presence indicator there as well. And that works the exact same as Skype for Business if you're familiar with that. Now we go on to settings, which are important on Teams because it's important to get Teams right for you. So you've got things at the top like your theme, you can change how it looks, and you've got your actual layout for the various teams that you're in. And I'm going to just actually quickly show you both of these settings. So I've just clicked the list layout for Teams, and you can see I've got a nice list on the left hand side of all the teams I'm in, with the content just to the right hand side of that. That's not too bad a setting, but I actually prefer using grid personally, so I'm just going to go back to that, and you'll see there's the nice grid with all of my teams in it, and you can see all the various ones that I'm a member of. Below that, you have various application settings, which you can feel free to tune however suits you. You've got auto start, open and background. But the one I would like to draw your attention to is to turn on the new meeting experience. Now, what that does is just when you have a Teams meeting or a call, for instance, it'll open the call or meeting in a separate window. That just means you're still able to navigate through Teams while on a call. So that's quite useful. Notification settings are important in Teams. It's a very collaborative platform, and so you want to make sure that you get these things right. Now, a setting that I would highlight here would be your missed activity emails. Now, the default setting for this is once every hour. I would urge you to change that to as soon as possible when you're using Teams. The reason for that is if you were to miss a call or a message, you wouldn't find out till up to an hour after you had missed the call or the message. Whereas if you changed it to as soon as possible, you would get an email instantly. And there we go. That's missed activity emails. And then you've got different channel and Teams notifications. You can have more, less, or custom notifications. And as you use Teams more, you'll be more familiar yourself with what things like personal app mentions are and whether you want to get banner and feed notifications. But suffice to say, for now, you can find all of these settings here. Only one more thing to point out in the settings, and that is your device settings, which I'll go into in just a little second here. So if you've ever got any issues with your camera or microphone, anything like that during a meeting, you can find that out there. That's all the settings, but as I say, as you use Teams yourself, you'll get more and more used to what suits you. You've got your back and forwards arrow just up the top left hand side, easy enough to miss, but just takes you back and forward between pages and Teams. Now onto the tabs on the left, we'll start with the activity tab, and that shows you all of your notifications in a nice feed. So any replies you've had or anyone that's maybe given you an app mention, you would see that there. Next up, we have chat tab, and this is similar to things like Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp. This is a one-time instant message to either one or more of your colleagues, and they don't need to be in your team. They can be anyone else with Microsoft Teams. If you wanted to start a new chat, you could just click the new chat icon, and that would open just a blank chat, and you could message anyone that you liked. Next up, we have Teams. You've already seen this tab before, and there you can see I've actually just clicked on one of the teams that I'm a member of, and it's opened the content of the teams. We'll look a little bit later about how to populate and navigate around that, but suffice to say that's what it is for now. And you can also join and create a team in this tab as well. Up the top right hand side, you'll see that option. On to calendar, straightforward. It's synced with your Outlook 365 calendar, so you will be your Outlook calendar, and you'll be able to access everything in that from here. Now onto the calls tab. This is to make a one-time call to anyone else with Microsoft Teams. Now there's a distinction between a Teams call and a Teams meeting. A Teams meeting is something you can schedule and invite people to. A call is a one-time piece of communication to someone else with Microsoft Teams. Next up, we have the Files tab, which has a few different document libraries in it. You've got your recent files, your Microsoft Teams files, so that's any files that are on any one of the teams that you're a member of. You've got your downloads and your OneDrive, which is fully synced up to Microsoft Teams, which is quite useful. Now, on your Microsoft Teams, you will most likely not have any further apps on your left-hand side, but I have pinned just a few extra ones just so that you can see that Teams really is a personalized, integrated workspace. You can find your favorite apps and integrate them and work them through Teams, which is quite useful. I've pinned, you can see here, Trello, OneNote, and Tasks by Planner, and I could just as easily unpin them. Now, as Evelyn said at the start, Teams is going to develop as time goes on, and there will be more and more apps added as we go. So you'll be able to keep up to date with that by looking at things like our roadmap and use these different apps and integrate them into your Teams. But you can personalize it and customize it how you like using your notifications and by pinning different apps. So with that, I'm going to hand you back to John, who is going to take us through a little bit more of a detail in the meetings section of Teams. So thank you for that.
Okay, thanks, Sean. Okay, meetings. Right, key information here. The minimum capacity is 2, the maximum is 300. That's likely to be raised in the future, but we don't know when. On screen, you can have a minimum of 2 people and a maximum of 49, though the default you will always get is 9. You have to select a different type of gallery. I'll show you that in a minute. You can join and share content from different devices. Recording secure and accessibility is built in. So the roles in a team meeting, first and foremost, is the owner and the organizer. That's the person who sets it up. They decide the start and the end times, who can present and speak and record, and they also have sole control of the breakout rooms. A presenter has mostly the same control as the organizer and the owner, but a presenter can't delete the meeting and has no control of the breakout rooms. Attendees, that's you guys, you can manage your own presence and your audio and video. You can turn your sound and your video on and off. And we can have guests from outside the university. Now, guests can be presenters or they can be attendees. That depends on how the meeting organizer has set up the options for the meeting. Now, over here, I've got a screenshot up here. You can see it. That's pretty much similar to what you're looking at as well. Your meetings and participants, if you're an organizer or a presenter, are controlled through this icon here. You can set up their permissions there if you want to alter them. This is the icon here that opens the chat channel. It will open on the right-hand side of the screen, the chat pane, I should say, so you can follow the chat or type something in yourself. Over here, we've got the hands up symbol, which means you can put your hand up if you want to ask a question. Whether the presenters answer that question or not, I suspect will depend on how much time they've got. The three dots button here has a whole pile of options down below them. Record a meeting is here. This is where you would start a recording and also stop it if you're the person controlling the meeting. background effects, they're in here. I'll talk more about background effects later, but you can put you can pick a picture to put behind you, or you can load your own. Now, up here we can see gallery. You can see that it's ticked in large gallery in together mode or grayed out. Well, when I took this screenshot, there was only one person in this meeting, and it was me. By default, you'll get gallery, which is 9 people, and it'll always be the video feeds that it prefers. As soon as you have 10 people, then you could, if you wanted, switch on large gallery. It can do up to 49, and there's also together mode, which puts you in a sort of virtual lecture theatre, and it can also do up to 49. Now, share content, I'm just going to mention that in the next screen. The button for sharing is up here, and I'm going to mention breakout rooms on the next screen after that. Here we go. So when you're sharing in a meeting, this is the button that you press to open the share tray. This is the share tray here. Now, important thing to do, and it's something I need to remember as well, if I'm going to share something like a YouTube video or something with sound, I need to click this on to include computer sound before I share it. That's exactly the same way as Zoom works. So some of you will be familiar with it. And down here, this is all the stuff that I could choose to share. Now I've got a dual monitor set up at home here. So under desktop, I've got screen 1 and screen 2. If I share screen 1, it shares my screen 1. You'll see the window that's on screen 1, but I could also bring up any of the other screens on screen 1. Same for screen 2 if I wanted to do that. Under window, these are all the windows that are open on my PC at the minute. This one's a mind map, and this one here is my my Outlook. Well, let's say I wanted to make absolutely sure that my email didn't appear during the meeting, and I wanted to show the mind map. I just ignore these options here, and I click on that one, and it would share that program and that program alone. PowerPoint gets its own little special place over here for doing presentations, and on this side you have whiteboards. The Microsoft Whiteboard, that's already available to you if you've got Teams, electronic whiteboard, and there's another one called Freehand by InVision, another whiteboard. I can't tell you much about that, and I believe there's some sort of cost involved if you want to get a more advanced version. Now, breakout rooms were last year the most requested feature for Teams that they didn't have, and they needed to get it out fast because everybody wanted it and Zoom had it. So now it's arrived, and if you are the organizer and only the organizer of the meeting, you will have this icon, which brings up this dialog here. You can choose how many rooms you want. Now this says assign 0 people to 2 rooms because there was no one else in the meeting other than me. But let's say you had 10 people in here, and if I left that on automatic and clicked create rooms, what it would do is take 5 people and put them in one room and 4 people and put them in the other room. And the 10th person is me, the organizer, because I don't go in. I'm not in any. I'm not allocated to any specific room. I can move between rooms. So the organizer can move around between the breakout rooms, ask people how it's going, tell them there's 5 minutes left, this sort of thing. If you decide to do your breakout rooms manually, so it's a little bit more to it. You would select this option here, and then when you created the rooms, you'd have to say who was in which room. And I understand that Microsoft are going to introduce a feature which allows you to set that up before the meeting starts. Currently, you have to do it during the meeting. But it's actually really easy to use. Now, if you look in the bullet points, we've got it highlighted there saying rehearse before the event. And the only reason we put that in is not because it's particularly difficult, but just to give you a little run through on it before you actually try it, particularly if you want to allocate manually, so you just see how it works. Okay, so that's really all I have to say on that one. So I'm going to hand you back to Sean now, and he's going to take you through on chat.
Okay, thanks for that, John. So before we go into this, the next few videos are actually recordings, and it's just of various scenarios where we can demonstrate how we would use chat and channels, which we're about to go into in a minute, just in a practical sense. So this is kind of how we would go about these. So I will start off just by showing you a video of some chat stuff just now, how I would start a chat. And what you're going to see in this video is both my own and John's screen and how chat looks on both of those screens. So we'll go ahead with that video. And here we can start on John's screen. Now you saw from the UI user interface section, there's where the chat tab is. And John is just going to click on that there. There we go. And he's going to open his chat with me. So he would just type down the bottom, just as you would in something like WhatsApp, the message he wants to send, and he wants a chat about the Small Apps project. And then you can see it's come through on my screen there. And if I click that chat, it'll actually just take me straight to the chat tab. I don't need to navigate through the left-hand side, and I can type my reply. Hi John, sounds good. Do we need a channel? You can see that little eye icon means John has seen it. And you've got those wee dots indicating that John is typing back. Yes, so John would like a channel. That is no problem. I can set that up, and that's how you would go around having a chat and navigating that. And we will go straight on, and I'll actually just show you, moving on from there, how we would set up the channel from that. So there we go. You can see I'm in the Teams tab. I'm in the PMO Online team, and if I click the 3 ellipses just next to the team name, you would see I had the option to add a channel. Now, based off of the conversation we had, it seems sensible to call it the Small Apps channel. And as well as the channel name, you've got the option to put in a description. Up to you if you want to put one in, and then you have the privacy setting of the channel, so you can have that either as standard or private. Now it's worth noting, when you set the privacy of a channel, you cannot then revert it to the other option. So if you have a standard channel, it will always be a standard channel, and the same with private. So I've created the channel, and you can see now that that is on the channel list under that PMO Online team. It's just there, Small Apps in the middle. And by default, it has opened the channel on the right-hand side, so you can see that I am actually in the channel. Now I've created it now, and the only thing that remains to do is to set the channel notifications. Now I like to use custom notifications when I'm using a channel, because I can set what people get notifications for, so you can have more or less notifications depending on the purpose of the channel, which as you're setting up, you'll probably know the best. And that's how you would set up a channel. So you've seen there how we navigate through chat and channel. And now I'm going to pass you back over to John, who is going to show you how you would populate that channel.
Okay, thanks, Sean. Right, posting in a channel. Now here we are in the Small Apps channel that Sean just created. And there's no prizes for guessing which button I'm going to click here. New conversation. So I'm going to do a basic conversation. I'm going to cheat and just paste it in. And I click on the little arrow on the right there, and that creates the conversation, just like posting on Facebook. And you can see where you would reply to that particular conversation where the cursor is flashing. Now, there's a more sophisticated way to do a conversation. Down here, start another one and hit the format button. Now, there's quite a few options in here, and I'm going to go through them. But first of all, I need some text to make this give this some context. It's just the same message as I sent before. Now, up here under New Conversation, there's another option here called Post an Announcement. I'll show you what one of those looks like in a minute. By default, everybody can reply, but you can limit the replies to yourself and moderators. And you can also post in multiple channels and also across multiple teams. That would depend on your permissions. If you think you know what these icons do, you'd be right. Bold, italic, underline, etc., etc. Work most of them out for yourself. And in paragraph, you've got heading 1, 2, and 3, which you should be using for accessibility reasons. Over here, we've got the delete button. If you click that, you get a confirmation message. I'm not going to discard mine because I've got other stuff I want to show you. Okay, down at the bottom, the first one's format. You saw that one already. You can attach files. You can do emojis. You can do GIFs. There's a massive collection of stickers. You can call videos up from Microsoft Stream. And they've got this one as well. This is the praise button. And if I click on this, it brings up this panel. So I can send a praise badge to somebody. You're courageous, or thank you. You're a team player, or I love your leadership. It's up to you if you want to use it or not. One more option down here, you can get a weather forecast. And there are various other little utilities that you can plug in down here if you want to use them. So I'm going to send that, and you will see 2 conversations, a basic one and a more sophisticated formatted one with the reply options immediately below them. This is what an announcement looks like. Okay, now what I want to show you here is not how to do one. You can figure that one out for yourself, guys. It's easy. To see me typing the @ sign, @SE, and if you look at that panel at the top, you can see Sean's name up there. What I'm going to do now is called an @mention. So I'm going to pick Sean, @Sean Deegan. What this does is it sends Sean, when I post it, it sends Sean an alert to let him know that he's been mentioned in this conversation. We find this really useful. It's great if you want to pull someone's attention to something right away. So I'm going to send it, and we're going to switch over to Sean's screen now, and you're going to see it turn up at the bottom right of the screen. There's my message coming in. You can see Sean's name in red there. That's the @mention color. You can see an @ symbol on the right-hand side of the conversation. So he's now doing an @mention back to me, @John Palmer. Looks great, I'll have a look, and he sends it back. We'll switch back to my screen, and down at the bottom right, you'll see the alert coming in. I have to say we found this really very useful indeed. Now, there's an alternative here. I'm just going to edit this conversation here. Click on the three dots, come down and click edit. I sent that to an individual. You can send it to multiple individuals if you want, but there's a different way to do it. And you might guess what it's going to be. If I come in here and type @ and I'm going to type in channel, you'll see the channel appear in the list below, the small apps channel. So when I send this, there's going to be an alert that goes to everybody who's a member of that channel. And there's a further alternative, and this one is, lo and behold, @team. And that would mean the alert goes to everybody who's a member of this team. Point to note, these can be switched on and off. You can have it switched off for @channel and @team if you want, but if you've got it switched on, everybody gets the alert. And I have to say, I can't recommend it enough. We found it to be extremely useful. Okay, next up, still me, accessibility. Going to come in here. First thing, custom backgrounds, we mentioned them earlier. Some people have difficulty seeing you in an online meeting if you have a very busy background behind you. So a good way to solve that is just to customize your background and go with the blur background. Blur's also useful if you're working from home and the kids are moving around behind you as well, but it's great for accessibility. You can load your own backgrounds if you want. Captions, you can switch them on if you like. Currently they're only in English, and currently they don't have user attribution. That's where the caption tells you who's speaking, but more languages and user attribution are coming soon. Transcription, meetings are automatically transcribed. There'll be a transcription file at the end. And also with the transcription, it's currently just English, more languages coming soon, and also user attribution. Now, if you want to use what's called the immersive reader for accessibility in a channel, click on the three dots above the conversation, click on immersive reader, and it brings the screen up. There are 3 panes on the left. I got to the top. The first one is text preferences. So if I click on that, it will give me options for changing the text size, increasing the spacing, changing the font, and the background color. The middle one are the grammar preferences. And this brings up, these are flags that highlight where nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs are. You can configure how it shows that. Really useful if you've got dyslexia. And on this one, you can change the line focus to 3 or 1, or there's 5 lines as well. Pictionary dictionary I'm not going to go into today, but under translate, there's a host of languages in here. It's currently on Spanish, as spoken in Spain. If I click document, it translates the document instantly. And if I come down to the bottom, I can play it back. Your choices are male voice or female voice, and speaks it back to you in Spanish. Got to say, Microsoft have got their act together on accessibility. So, moving on, setting up a meeting. And for this one, I'm going to hand you back to Sean.
Okay, thanks, John. So next we'll have a look at how to set up a meeting, and there are a few options for how you could do that. Now you can see, to start with, I am in the channel Small Apps that I created previously, and there's a few options of setting a meeting up here. I could click the Meet button, which would start an instant meeting with everyone in the channel. However, they wouldn't get a notification for it. So perhaps a better way to do it would be to click the drop-down arrow that is just to the right-hand side of that button, and if I click that, you'll see I can schedule a meeting. Now, the benefit of having a meeting from within a channel is the conversation history will be saved within the channel. I'm not going to actually set this up because it's the exact same screen as the one I'm about to show you. So this is setting up one from your Outlook calendar. And let's actually go ahead and set this one up just to show you how we would do that. So this is very similar to an Outlook invite that you would send someone. The only difference is the email that it will generate will have a link at the bottom to the Microsoft Teams meeting, in the same way that a Zoom invite would work. So let's call it the Small Apps Catch Up, and we'll invite John. And obviously I set this one up from my Outlook calendar, so by default it wouldn't have a channel location. However, you can set that to be whatever you like. And again, just to repeat, the benefit of that is that the conversation history of the meeting would be saved. So let's actually send that and see how that looks. That's sent there, and I'm going to just skip forward to the next week, and you'll be able to see. There we go. So 15th of December, might be a bit late to that meeting now, but you can actually join from your calendar as well. So quite useful for that. And another way you could set up a meeting, this would be perhaps if you were sending a meeting to a distribution list or a lot of people who you didn't maybe want to type into Microsoft Teams. It's the exact same as you would send out a meeting invite, except you just download the Teams plugin and click New Teams Meeting, and you would just set that up the exact same way. Now, the final way I'm going to show you is just from starting a meeting from chat. So you'll remember where the chat tab is, just on your left-hand side, and when you click there and you go into any one of your chats, you'll see up the top right-hand side, there's the option to have either an audio or a video call. So if you're having a lot of conversation, you think this would be best placed or we would be ideal to be moving over to a meeting, you can absolutely do that from there. And that's the basic ways of setting up a meeting. So I hope that's helpful. And you can access them, just to repeat again, you can access them all from your calendar as well. That's us for meetings. Now I'm going to pass you over to John, who will talk about working with files.
Okay, folks. Working with files. Once a month, our team has a meeting, and prior to that meeting, we'll have completed all our reports on the projects we're working on, and we'll load them into a specific channel in Teams on a specific tab. Okay, and once the meeting starts, we'll hold the meeting in Teams, we'll go into that tab, and we'll go through each of those documents one at a time, and we can all open them up. And we can all edit them at the same time if we wanted to. And you can see clearly who's on which line. Normally what we do is that the person responsible for the document is the one doing the editing, but it's a fantastic way of collaborating, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So, working with files. Now here we are in the Small Apps channel, and I'm going to go up to the top of the screen in a second, and I'm going to go to the Files tab. And this is where we're going to load the files in. It's the exact copy of how we do it in the real world. Now, there's no files in here at the minute. There's a couple of ways of loading files or even folders in here. I'm just going to keep it simple for this demo. Come down to File Explorer, pick up these four small files. They'll all load really quickly because they're no size at all. Left click, hold, drag, and drop them into the box. You'll get a couple of messages saying something's loading up and it's been loaded, but it will do it really quickly because they're small files. There you go. So that's me, got my files in. For this upcoming meeting, we're ready to go. So just to take you through what's in here, these tools up at the top are for the tab. Under the New button in the Files tab, you can add a folder or you can create various types of Microsoft document from scratch. Here's the other upload option, upload files and folders through here rather than drag and drop. Sync syncs the tab with OneDrive, which is really useful, and Copy Link gives you a link to this tab which you can post anywhere you like. I'm not going to tell you what download does because that's obvious. I'm not going to talk about adding cloud storage today. You can open this up in the underlying SharePoint site and work in there if you want. Now, if I select a document, let's pick this Word doc here, it changes the options at the top. Open allows me to open it in Teams, though you can just click on it to do that. Open in app means open an installed Word, or you can open it in the browser-based version of Word. Copy a link gives me a link to this document, which I can post where I like. Now this next feature is really useful. It's called Make This a Tab. My cursor where it's pointing, we're going to create a tab here. When I click on this with this document selected, it turns the document into a tab. And it will load in the tools for editing this because it's opening it up in online Word, and we can come in here and edit this as we like. I'm just going to remove that. When I remove it, it will kick me back to the Posts channel. So I'll come back into Files and reselect. Here we go. Okay, download, again, does what you think. And lo and behold, delete also does what you think. Pin to the top allows you to take an important document and pin it to the top of the tab if you want. Gives you a little preview there. Quite useful. And other options, you've got rename, which is more useful than you might think. I've used it quite a few times. You can open up in the underlying SharePoint site. You can move it to another channel or team depending on your permissions you've got for writing into other channels and teams. And there's a 3 dots menu here as well, and when we click on that, you can make a copy of it, or you can check it out so that only you can edit it. Quite a useful option, that one. Okay, so that's us. We've got our documents loaded. We're going to start our meeting, and what we're going to do is we're going to go into the Small Apps project brief. Sean and Evelyn are doing this as well. So I've just opened up the document. You'll see it load up. You'll see the toolbar load in at the top. And you won't see them yet, but I'm going to zoom in here, and you will see Evelyn and Sean join the editing session for this document that we're collaborating on. There's Evelyn arriving, And here's Sean arriving. Note that you don't get to pick your color. Microsoft does that for you. And if we zoom out a little bit, well, in a second, there's Sean and there's Evelyn. If we zoom out, we're not going to do much with it. I'm just going to put a highlight in yellow on this. And you'll see little flags down the page here. There's one, a blue one called ET. If I put my cursor on that, it tells me Evelyn's cursor is here. She's done a highlight, and here's Sean's flag down here. Yep, there he is. He's done one in green just there. I can't stress how useful it is to be able to do this, to load the files up into the meeting that we're going to hold the meeting, and come in here and not just read the files, but actually collaborate in real time. We found it an absolute boon, and I cannot recommend it to you enough. So that's this section coming to an end, and we're moving on to coming soon. I'm going to hand you over to Evelyn Traorty.
Thank you very much to both Sean and John for such a really informative walkthrough on Microsoft Teams. So we were looking at it there very much from the core elements of Teams and how it gets used for collaboration. But as I said at the beginning, there's an awful lot more coming up. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to talk to you about a couple of the smaller apps that will be made available very soon. We have, first of all, Microsoft Planner. Microsoft Planner is an excellent tool that allows you to manage your team's workload. You can set all of your different tasks into different lists or buckets, as they call it, within the software, and then assign it to different members of your team. And with Planner, you get full integration with Teams and Outlook. It gives you reminders on when things are due, when people have maybe set you up against a task, assigned you a task, and you can see the progress on the work within the overall team, what other people are completing. It's also available on mobile devices as well, which makes it easier to access all your workload on the go. So you can go into the kitchen to see it, or you can go into the living room, depending on where you're at. To-Do is a very, very similar type app. In fact, Microsoft have now combined Planner and To-Do. It's now called Tasks by Planner and To-Do. And Sean talked earlier about being able to pin your different apps on the side, and that's one, once that becomes available, that'll be one that you'll be able to pin over within your Teams environment. The difference mainly with To-Do is that To-Do is primarily for organizing your own self, so it is more about your own tasks that you're managing within that tool, and you can work with them combined within your Microsoft Teams environment, or you can work with them independently by logging on to office.com. And the last one that I have on the list there is Microsoft Forms. Now, Microsoft Forms is a very easy to use tool that can be used to create a quick survey or a poll. You can use it within your Teams, or you can use it independent of that. We'll be sending you out a hyperlink at the end of this session to get some feedback from you, and we've used Microsoft Forms to capture that feedback. All the end user needs is to have a web browser, and they're able to complete the form. And you can then go in and see the data in the background, and you can download that data in Excel format. And as I mentioned earlier, there's lots of opportunities with the Power Platforms to actually work with these. So with that, I'm going to hand you over to John, who's going to talk you through some of the opportunities on the Power Platform.
Great, thanks, Evelyn. The Power Platform. Microsoft Power Platform is coming to Strathclyde. Now, we're still looking at it and we're still learning about it. And there's some decisions yet to be made, but it is coming. So what is it? So I'm going to start with an analogy. Many of you will have used the T4 content management system. It allows you to create web pages for the university website without having any knowledge of how to write HTML code. Well, in a very real sense, the Power Platform does the same thing, except for data. It allows you to create apps that can view, gather, analyze, manipulate, and report on your data in your systems without having any knowledge of how to write code. Now, to give you a better idea of this, I'm going to show you a case study from one of the Microsoft websites. It's from a school in America where the school principal used Power Platform, and she used the tools Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI to solve a data problem for her teachers. And note that when she says flow during the video, she's talking about the predecessor to Power Automate.
My name is is Lauren Taylor. I am the assistant principal at Manitou Park Elementary in Tacoma, Washington. It's in the Tacoma Public School System. We have about 500 students at our school, pre-K through 5th grade. The problem that I was trying to solve with Power Apps was really trying to visualize reading data in a way that was immediate and automatic for my teachers and for myself. To solve the problem, I stumbled on Power Apps, and I was able to create an app where teachers would be able to go in, they'd be able to not only input the student name and the reading level, but also all of the other diagnostic needs that they found for each of the students right in there. And then this would speak to a Power BI dashboard, so we could then visualize that data.
I am using this Power App in many different ways. My favorite way is working with a coworker who is co-teaching in my classroom. So we're sharing kids. We are double dosing these kids. So we're seeing them twice a day, and we want to make sure that we have new ideas for them, but the same main topic to be working on with different books.
So I would like to know, what is the book you read today?
The Cat and the Bird.
Teachers use the app in a couple of ways. So one is that it lives on our building teams, and anytime a teacher opens up the app, there'll be a list of students there, or they have the option to input another student. Then what they would do is input all the student data, meaning their reading needs, their reading levels, and any notes that they feel are relevant to themselves or anyone else who might be reading with that student. And then what happens is Flow takes that information and then populates that on a Power BI, where they can go in, they can sort all of that information and create reading groups in just a couple of clicks.
I'm working with 4 different reading groups, and I'm cycling through books, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, did I already read this book with this group? And they really love it when I can go back in that Power App and remember which books I read with them as I keep pushing them forward in their reading skills.
My job title is assistant principal. My job title is not app developer, IT manager, coder. I really don't know anything about coding other than what I have learned from the Power Platform community and the Power Addicts.
Okay, folks, well, we'll just stop that there. So that was the Power Platform in action. And what does it mean for us? Well, as I said before, it's designed for ordinary users. And as the lady in the video said, you don't need to know how to write code in order to use it. Now, we've had a few initial goes at building apps. We don't really know how to use it yet, but we're working on it. Certainly, we can see the possibilities. So we'll get up to speed, and later we'll get you up to speed once we're ready. So let's go through these 3 components of Power Platform: Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI. The BI stands for Business Intelligence. Power Apps. This lets you create apps just like the apps you get on the App Store and Google Play that run on your mobile phone or your tablet, your desktop or your laptop. And you can use these to view, gather and manipulate data. Power Automate is the successor to Microsoft Flow, and it allows you to create workflows. So this is aimed at improving efficiency through automation by replacing manual processes, such as you get sent a spreadsheet once a month and you have to key it in manually. Perhaps you can use Power Automate to make that happen automatically. Power BI allows you to build interactive dashboards and plug these into your Teams channels. The data can come from, for example, that really important SharePoint site that you've had for years. The data could come from an SQL database, or it could come from the Power App that you built last week. Now, one other thing you need to understand about Power Apps is that they come with something called connectors. And although these differ depending on which component you're using, they allow you to connect to other systems, both Microsoft systems and non-Microsoft systems. You'll be able to work with data from your SharePoint sites, or an Oracle database, or Freshservice, or Trello, or an Excel spreadsheet. The list goes on and on and on. And you'll be able to take that data and integrate it directly into the dashboards in your Teams channels. So as I said, the Power Platform is coming to Strathclyde. It's coming soon. We'll let you know, and we'll help you get trained up. And that's all I've got to say on it for today. So with that, everybody, the main part of the presentation comes to an end, and we're now moving to the Q&A, and I'm going to hand you over to Evelyn Trearty.
Okay, Thank you very much, John. I'm going to be very quickly handing over to Nicola and Ronnie, who've been very busy in the background answering loads and loads of questions. Thank you very, very much indeed. We've had at least 19 that we've published and another 19 that are sitting in there that we just never got around to. So with that, I'm just going to hand you over to either Nicola or Ronnie to talk about some of the questions that we've already answered. You'll have seen those in there, and there are also a couple of other questions in that we haven't yet published. So I'm going to hand you over to Nicola and Ronnie. I'll need to remind them to take their mics off.
Morning, everybody. Good to be with you all. Evelyn, I'm going to need a little prompt because I was actually answering a question when you gave us that introduction. So can you give me a lead on where you're wanting us to start?
Yes, you'll see we've had quite a number of published questions in there. So there've been questions in there about some of the new features that have come up within Microsoft Teams. So there was a question around the breakout rooms, which breakout rooms were probably the most eagerly anticipated feature in Microsoft Teams, because you already have them in other tools like Zoom, and we didn't have them yet in Teams. Unfortunately, at the minute, with that tool or that part of the tool, you can only have one person who can go between your different breakout rooms. So I think one of the things, a key thing to mention just with response to any of the questions, is that there is a Microsoft user voice that you can sign up to that gives you opportunities to ask Microsoft about when they're going to be rolling things out, and there's a Microsoft roadmap available as well. So some of the questions that we're answering are actually things that are on the roadmap. There were also some questions in there, Nicola, with regards to the general channel, which I think you answered for Anne. With regards to naming.
Right. Do you want me to pick up in response to some of those questions?
Yeah.
Okay, Evelyn. Okay, well, first of all, thank you to everybody for the questions that you've been putting in. There has practically been smoke coming off my keyboard trying to keep up with it, and I'm sure Ronnie's in the same position as well. A lot of the questions have been around functionality, and apologies if we haven't managed to get to your question yet. It's literally about the time we have to respond. So for people who've been asking questions about functionality that don't have an answer up on the screen yet, we will get back to you all, and indeed we will make sure that all questions are published and responses given so that everybody knows everything that was asked during the session this morning. With regards to the general channel and other bits of functionality in Microsoft, I think the best thing to say is Microsoft have changed the way that they're releasing software. So they're moving more in line in the way that other companies release software, in that you get your main piece of software first, and then they roll out additional functionality and improvements on a regular basis. And that is what we're seeing in Teams. It is, you've got basic Teams, which you've been shown through today, and lots of additional extras and lots of niggles with things that are in the software that you're looking at. So for example, with the general channel, you can't change the name of the general channel at the moment. But what Microsoft have done is they've set up a user voice community where you can vote for what needs to be changed, and they are very responsive indeed. I have voted a lot in there, and I got a response this morning saying that something that I had asked to be changed, along with thousands of other people, has been changed now. So I don't know if that gets to the point that Evelyn was wanting me to get to, but we'll answer the technical questions, and there are ways of prompting Microsoft to improve their services as well. Does that cover it, Evelyn?
Yeah, I think that's the key thing, because a lot of the questions in there are around, can it do something? And we could probably give you the answer today, and maybe tomorrow that functionality does get switched on. So it's just to make users aware of that. Ronnie has got a couple of questions that he's going to answer as well for us.
Sure, I'll just pick up from what Nicola was saying there with regards to user voice. There's 3 questions I can quickly run through answers to. The first one by Jean about organising a meeting and at a later point changing the organiser. That again is something that has been requested on user voice, and Microsoft currently show it as planned. So the answer is you can't do it at the moment, but hopefully at some point soon you will be able to change the organiser in a meeting. There's another question from Roseanne about microphone levels being a problem within Teams. This is something that a few people out there on the internet have noted. There's no clear answer to that, unfortunately. It would really just be a question of trying to work through that, preferably with your local IT staff, possibly trying a different microphone. There's no kind of clear answer on that one. And the question from Anonymous on making appointments on behalf of someone else. You should be able to make or schedule Teams meetings in someone else's diary if you have delegate permission for them, so that the meeting's actually scheduled in their diary, and then they should be able to control it okay. I don't know if anyone else is wanting to pick up some of the other questions at the moment while I scroll and read some more.
Okay, I'm going to pick up one as well in here, and I'll just publish it as we go through. Does the person being invited to a meeting require a password to enable them to join the meeting? That's probably one of the benefits of using Microsoft Teams. It's picking up who you're logged on as already, your authentication as a university user, so you don't need to have a password. There are opportunities to set up different ways of controlling meetings, where you can manage whether people join meetings before you as well and things. So there are opportunities to manage meetings, but you don't have to worry about having a password to join one. Are there any other questions that we can answer?
Can I pick up on a couple of the questions that have come through, Evelyn?
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of questions that are coming through about how to access future apps. We've been asked when will the To-Do app be available? And we've also been asked when third-party tools like Trello will be available to be integrated. To-Do, I have good news. To-Do is arriving very soon. But the wider news on it is that we will be publishing a roadmap. So much as Microsoft published their own roadmap for when functionality and new apps and new features are going to be released, we'll be having a Strathclyde roadmap that will be doing more or less the same thing. So that should be published by the end of this month and available to you from the Cloud Transformation team site that we're setting up, that everyone will be able to join and keep track of what's going on in the programme and add your own voice and ask for your own priorities and when things are coming up. Evelyn, I don't know if you want to say any more about that.
Yes, as you mentioned, our roadmap will be published and that'll show whenever the different tools will be available, and the ones that are likely to be available very soon are the ones that I mentioned. So we've got Forms, we've got Planner and To-Do. I wanted to pick up on a question that Fiona had added in, and it was around it would be useful to know how to create a webinar like this. And I wondered maybe if John, you wanted to come in on that one. This is a live event tool, which is like a subset, if you like, of Microsoft Teams. So John, can you take that one for us?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so when we started with Teams, we started with meetings and then we progressed to a live event. If you go to our training site, you'll find this specific and very detailed support, not just for attendees coming to a live event like you guys are today, but also for the people who are going to construct and build and run a live event. There's a fair bit to it. It's a substantially more complicated process to get up to understand in the first place, and also to operate once you're in place, because there are different roles going on in the background that you can't see today. Sharing works slightly differently too. I mean, hopefully you've felt it was all reasonably smooth today. When we ran our original Teams orientation sessions, we ran them in a Teams meeting, so it was really easy just to share Teams and show them to people live. But you can't really do that with a live event, because if I shared my Teams with you just now, you'd see the screen that we're looking at, which is the producer screen, which you use for running something like that. So there's different roles there. If you want to know more about it, have a look at the training site. There's really comprehensive support for running live events. They can do up to 10,000 people, and that's likely to rise. And you can have a maximum of 30 live events with 10,000 people in each simultaneously. I don't think we're going to be needing that functionality anytime soon, to be absolutely honest, but it's a really comprehensive broadcast style utility that's built into Teams. So have a look at the training site and you can get more detail there. Is that okay?
Excellent, John. Thank you very much. I've just got that 5-minute warning. That's a new feature in Teams telling us that we're about to finish up. So I'm going to hand you back to Nicola just for one last question.
Hi. There was one last question in there was, will the uni be keeping Zoom moving forward or having us all move to Teams? I think it's important to say here that today, the university has no plans to whip Zoom away from anybody, but as part of the programme, we will be looking at opportunities for reducing the amount of software that gets used across the university and trying to streamline some of that to make it easier for people to know where to store files and have recommendations on the best tools to use for things. So a couple of questions that have come up asking comparisons about that. We don't have answers to that today. There are no plans to rush to do anything, but it is something that the programme will be exploring, and where there are opportunities for the university to come down one side or another on something, then that's probably going to come at some point. We have had absolutely tons of questions, and thank you all. Thank you very much for staying with us. Normally with these things you might expect a dip in attendance, but you've all stayed with us, and that is delightful. Thank you all for the questions that you've put in. We will publish all of the questions and make sure that everybody gets to see the answers to them. Okay, I'll hand back to Evelyn.
Okay, thank you very much, Nicola. I'm just going to wrap us all up now, to be honest. Thank you so much for coming along. We've had really, really good attendance, as Nicola has said. We'll be sending you on an email after the event. We'll give you the hyperlinks out to the feedback form, and we'll give you the opportunity to sign up to find out more about what's going on the cloud programme. We mentioned the roadmap to you several times throughout this. It's on my to-do list in the next couple of days, so we'll get that published as soon as we can. And there'll be opportunities for you to find out more, to come along to other engagement events like this, just to have your say, to vote for the apps. Some of you are talking in there, why can't I see Trello? You'll get opportunities to go and vote for those apps as well. So thank you all very much for attending.